The claiming hall was where the unwanted gathered. Wolves too broken, too flawed, too cursed to find mates through proper channels. And as Nerissa stood among them, she knew she was the most unwanted of all. She wore a heavy cloak despite the warmth of the crowded hall, the fabric hiding what lay beneath. Not her face. There was nothing wrong with her face. It was what marked her back that she could never let anyone see. The brand. The symbol of her shame. The proof that she was less than nothing. A null-blood. Born without a wolf. In a world where wolves defined worth, she had none. The alphas prowled through the hall, examining the unclaimed women like merchants inspecting damaged goods. One by one, they passed Nerissa without a glance. Why would they look? They could not sense a wolf in her. To them, she was invisible, empty, worthless. Her father stood at the edge of the hall, watching with cold satisfaction. If no one claimed her today, he could finally be rid of her. Sell her to the labor camps, wash his hands of his greatest shame. Then the doors exploded open. Alpha King Keldon of Valdros strode into the hall like a storm given form. Power rolled off him in waves that made every wolf in the room bow their heads instinctively. He was devastating. Dark hair, eyes like liquid mercury, a face carved from shadows and moonlight. And he was walking straight toward her. The other alphas parted before him. The women held their breath. And Nerissa's pulse stopped entirely as he halted directly in front of her. That intense gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that made her legs weak. And then, in a voice so low only she could hear, the Alpha King of Valdros whispered 3 words that would change everything. I found you. Neither of them understood yet what those words would cost them both. The claiming hall of Thrinmore had stood for 300 years. Its vaulted ceilings and stone pillars had witnessed countless pairings, countless bargains struck between desperate wolves and those willing to take what others had discarded. Tonight, 47 women stood on the raised platform. Nerissa was number 48. She kept her head down, her cloak pulled tight around her shoulders despite the oppressive heat of too many bodies packed into one space. Sweat trickled down her spine, tracing the raised edges of the brand she had carried since childhood. The mark her father had burned into her flesh the day he decided she was worthless. A circle with a line through it, the null-blood symbol. But it was more than just a brand. It was a seal. A magical binding that caged whatever power might have lived inside her, locking it away so completely that even she had forgotten it existed. Around her, the other women shifted nervously. Some wept quietly. Others held their chins high, clinging to whatever dignity remained. One woman, heavily pregnant and clearly abandoned, stared at nothing with hollow eyes. At least they have wolves, Nerissa thought bitterly. At least they have something to offer. The auctioneer's voice droned through the hall, listing bloodlines and qualities with practiced indifference. Number 32, daughter of the Western Ridge Pack. Strong breeding potential. Minor scarring on the left shoulder. Starting offers? Nerissa watched as alphas circled the platform. Merchants, minor lords, aging widowers seeking 2nd or 3rd wives. None of them sought love. They sought servants. Broodmares, warm bodies to fill cold beds, and none of them even glanced at her. She could feel their senses sliding past her like water around a stone. Where other women radiated the presence of their wolves, Nerissa radiated nothing. To their heightened awareness, she barely existed. Why do you even try? Her sister Lycia had asked that morning, watching Nerissa prepare with barely concealed contempt. No alpha will claim a null-blood. You are wasting father's time and money. Perhaps someone will be desperate enough, Nerissa had replied quietly. Lycia had laughed. Desperate enough to mate with an empty shell? You would be doing them a cruelty. Now, standing under the flickering torchlight, Nerissa wondered if her sister was right. Perhaps she should have accepted her fate. Let her father sell her to the labor camps in the northern mountains. At least there, her lack of a wolf would not matter. She would simply be another body breaking rocks until she died. The auctioneer moved down the line. 41, 42, 43, 3 more women before her. Then it would be her turn to stand before the crowd and watch them look through her like glass. Her father, Lord Theron Morcant, stood near the western pillar, speaking with a man in merchant's clothing, negotiating, probably, making arrangements for what would happen when she was not chosen. She caught his eye for just a moment, and the cold satisfaction in his gaze made her stomach turn. He wanted this. He had always wanted this. Ever since her mother, Helena, had died, Theron had treated Nerissa like a curse upon his house. 46. The auctioneer's voice grew closer. Nerissa closed her eyes. Just breathe. Just survive. Whatever comes next, you will survive it. 47. Number 48. The auctioneer began. Daughter of... The great doors of the hall slammed open with a sound like thunder. Every voice fell silent. Every head turned. And Nerissa felt something she had never felt before. A pressure in the air so immense it made her knees buckle. A presence so overwhelming that even the strongest alphas in the room lowered their eyes. Power. Pure, undiluted, ancient power. Alpha King Keldon of Valdros walked into the claiming hall. He was taller than any man Nerissa had ever seen. Broad-shouldered, lean-waisted, moving with the predatory grace of a wolf in human skin. His hair was dark as a moonless night, falling past his collar in careless waves. His face was the kind that artists tried and failed to capture. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and his eyes. Gods above, his eyes. Silver. Not gray. Silver like liquid mercury, like starlight trapped in ice. Those eyes swept the room with cold assessment, and everywhere they touched, wolves trembled. Your Majesty, the auctioneer stammered, nearly dropping his ledger. We are honored beyond measure. We had no idea you would... Continue. The king's voice was low and quiet, but it carried through the hall like a blade through silk. Yes, of course, Your Majesty. Number 48, daughter of... But the king was not listening. He was walking, moving through the crowd as alphas stumbled over themselves to clear his path. His gaze had fixed on something at the far end of the platform. On someone. Nerissa froze as she realized he was walking toward her. No. That was impossible. He could not even sense her. No one could sense her. She was nothing. Less than nothing. A null blood branded and discarded. The Alpha King stopped directly in front of her. The silence in the hall was absolute. Nerissa could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. She kept her head bowed, staring at his boots. Expensive leather, perfectly polished, the boots of a man who owned kingdoms. Look at me. His voice was soft, almost gentle. But there was command in it that her body obeyed before her mind could resist. She lifted her head. Those mercurial eyes met hers, and Nerissa felt something crack open inside her chest. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time stirred in the darkness of her soul. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Then the Alpha King leaned closer, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, and whispered words meant only for her. I found you. Before she could respond, before she could ask what those words meant, he straightened and turned to address the hall. This one. His voice rang out with absolute authority. I claim this one. The chaos that erupted was deafening. Voices rose in shock, in disbelief, in outrage. The auctioneer sputtered. The other alphas exchanged bewildered glances, and Nerissa's father pushed through the crowd, his face twisted with fury. Your Majesty, wait! Theron's voice cut through the noise. You do not understand what she is. She is defective, Broken. She has no wolf, no worth, no. I know exactly what she is. The king's eyes turned to Theron, and Nerissa watched her father flinch as if struck. The question is whether you know what you have been hiding all these years. Theron went pale. His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in her life, Nerissa saw fear in her father's eyes. What did the king mean? What had her father been hiding? Before she could ask, Keldon took her hand. His grip was firm but not painful, warm where she expected cold. And the moment his skin touched hers, that stirring in her chest intensified. Something deep inside her seemed to reach toward him, straining against chains she did not know existed. "Come," the king said quietly. "We have much to discuss." And as he led her out of the claiming hall, past the staring crowds and her furious father and her stunned sister, Nerissa realized that her life had just changed completely. She just did not know yet if it had changed for better or for worse. The carriage that carried Nerissa to the palace was unlike anything she had ever seen. Velvet seats soft as clouds, windows of actual glass rather than oiled paper. Gold trim that caught the moonlight and scattered it across the interior like fallen stars. She sat rigidly on the edge of her seat, too afraid to lean back. Too aware of the brand on her back and how easily the fabric of her cloak might shift to reveal it. The Alpha King sat across from her, watching. Always watching. That intense gaze had not left her face since they entered the carriage. "You are afraid of me," he observed. It was not a question. "I am afraid of many things, Your Majesty." Nerissa's voice came out steadier than she expected. "You are simply the newest addition to a very long list." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise? Amusement? It vanished before she could identify it. "You have a sharp tongue for a woman who was just purchased at an auction." "Claimed," Nerissa corrected quietly. "Not purchased. There was no money exchanged." "A technicality." "Perhaps. But technicalities matter when you have nothing else." The king studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, the corner of his mouth curved upward. It was not quite a smile, but it softened the harsh planes of his face in a way that made her pulse quicken. "You are not what I expected," he murmured. "What did you expect?" "Someone more broken." His eyes dropped to her hands, clenched tightly in her lap. "Your father called you defective, worthless. He said you had no wolf." Nerissa's stomach tightened. "He spoke the truth, Your Majesty. I am a null-blood, born empty. I have no wolf, no worth to offer a mate. If you are seeking strong pups or a powerful alliance, you have made a terrible mistake." She waited for disgust to cross his features, for regret, for the inevitable dismissal. Instead, the king leaned forward, his gaze boring into hers with unnerving intensity. "What if I told you," he said slowly, "that your father lied?" The words hit her like a physical blow. "What? What if I told you that you are not empty at all? That what you carry inside you is not absence, but something far rarer?" His voice dropped lower. "Something that has been deliberately hidden, deliberately caged." Nerissa shook her head. "That is impossible. I have been tested, examined. Every healer in Valdros has confirmed. Healers can only find what they are looking for." The king's jaw tightened. "And there are those who have worked very hard to ensure no one ever looked for what you truly are." Her mind reeled. This made no sense. Her whole life, she had been told she was nothing. Less than nothing. A mistake of nature, a burden to her family, a stain on her father's bloodline. And now this king, this impossibly powerful stranger, was telling her it was all lies? "Why?" she whispered. "Why would anyone hide something like that?" "Because they feared it." Keldon's eyes gleamed in the moonlight. Because what sleeps inside you is dangerous, powerful, the kind of power that could shake kingdoms if it ever woke. Nerissa stared at him. Her blood rushed through her veins, her palms were slick with sweat, and deep in her chest that strange stirring sensation had grown stronger, almost painful now, like something was trying to claw its way out of a cage. "I do not believe you," she said. But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her voice. "You will." The king settled back in his seat. "In time, you will understand everything. But for now, all you need to know is this." He paused, his expression hardening into something cold and regal once more. "I have been searching for you for 3 years, not for love, not for companionship, for necessity. There is a prophecy written in my bloodline, and you are the key to fulfilling it." The carriage slowed. Through the window, Nerissa glimpsed the palace rising against the night sky. Towers of black stone and silver spires, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "What prophecy?" she asked. "What do you want from me?" The king met her eyes. "I want you to be my queen, to bond with me and bear my heirs, to stand beside me before the kingdom and fulfill the destiny that was written long before either of us was born." Nerissa's throat went dry. "And in return? Protection, wealth, power beyond imagining." His voice was flat, factual. "You will want for nothing. You will be untouchable. No one will ever brand you or sell you or treat you as worthless again." It sounded like a dream. Too perfect. Too easy. "What is the cost?" Nerissa asked quietly. "There is always a cost." For a long moment, the king was silent. Then he spoke, and his voice was colder than winter wind. "The cost is this. I will give you everything you could ever need. But I will not give you my heart." His eyes were impenetrable. "I cannot love you. I will not allow myself to love you. We will be partners in duty. Nothing more." The words should have stung. Instead, Nerissa felt something like relief. "You want a contract," she said. "Not a marriage." "Yes." "No expectations of affection, no pretense of care." "None." Nerissa considered this. A life without love, but also without cruelty. Safety without sentiment. It was more than she had ever been offered. "Then I accept," she said. The king blinked. For just a moment, something that might have been confusion crossed his features. "You accept? Just like that? You do not wish to negotiate? To demand more?" "What more could I demand?" Nerissa met his gaze steadily. "You are offering me freedom from my father. Protection from a world that has only ever seen me as worthless. A crown, however hollow." She shook her head slightly. "I have spent my entire life being told I deserve nothing. Your offer is already more than I ever dared to hope for." The king stared at her for a long moment, and in his eyes, Nerissa saw something she could not quite identify. Something that almost looked like pain. "You deserve far more than this," he said quietly, "but I am not capable of giving it." Before she could respond, the carriage door opened. A servant bowed low. "Your Majesty, my lady, welcome to the palace of Valdros." Nerissa stepped out into the cold night air, staring up at the towering spires that would become her prison or her salvation. She did not yet know which. The wedding was held 3 days later in the great cathedral of Thrinmore. Nerissa had barely slept. The nights in the palace had been filled with fittings and preparations, servants who would not meet her eyes, and whispers that followed her through every corridor. Is it true she has no wolf? The king must be desperate. Perhaps he has gone mad. Now, standing in the antechamber of the cathedral, Nerissa tried to steady her breathing. The gown they had given her was beautiful. Cream silk embroidered with silver thread, fitted perfectly to her body. But they had allowed her to keep a high back, just as she had requested. No one would see the brand that served as her magical seal today. Small mercies. A knock at the door made her jump. "Enter," she called. The door opened to reveal a face she had not expected. Her sister Lycia, dressed in pale lavender, her expression unreadable. "So it is true." Lycia stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "You actually managed to trap a king." "I trapped no one." Nerissa turned back to the mirror. "He chose me." "He chose a null-blood?" Lycia laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Either he is a fool, or he knows something we do not." Nerissa thought of the king's words in the carriage. "Your father lied. What sleeps inside you is dangerous." "Perhaps both," she said quietly. Lycia moved closer, her reflection appearing beside Nerissa's in the mirror. They looked nothing alike. Lycia had inherited their mother Helena's golden beauty. Nerissa had inherited nothing. Plain brown hair, gray eyes, unremarkable features. "Be careful, sister." Lycia's voice dropped to a whisper. "Father is furious. He is already plotting. He will not let you rise above him." Nerissa tensed. "What can he do?" "I will be queen." "You will be a queen no one respects, a null-blood on a throne, an embarrassment to the crown." Lycia's eyes met hers in the mirror. "And when the king realizes what you truly are, when he sees the mark on your back, and understands what you have been hiding." He agreed never to see it. Lycia's eyebrows rose. "He what?" "The king has agreed that no one will see my back. Ever. It was part of our arrangement." For a moment, genuine surprise flickered across Lycia's face. "He knows about the brand?" "He knows I wish to keep something hidden. He respects that wish." Lycia stared at her for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "You are either very lucky or very doomed. I cannot decide which." The cathedral bells began to toll. Nerissa straightened her spine. "I suppose we shall find out." The cathedral was filled to capacity. Every noble house in Valdros had sent representatives. Foreign dignitaries lined the upper balconies, and the common folk had packed the streets outside, desperate for a glimpse of their mysterious new queen. Nerissa walked alone down the long aisle. No father to give her away. She had refused thereon that honor, and the king had supported her decision without question. Another small mercy. Every step felt like walking through water. She could feel the weight of 1,000 stares pressing against her skin. Whispers rustled through the crowd like wind through dead leaves. "She looks ordinary. No wolf presence at all." What was he thinking? But Nerissa kept her eyes fixed on the altar, on the man who waited there. Alpha King Keldon stood in formal black, silver embroidery catching the candlelight. His dark hair was pulled back from his face, revealing the sharp angles of his features. And his eyes. Those eyes tracked her progress down the aisle with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. He was beautiful, devastatingly, impossibly beautiful, and he would never love her. Nerissa reached the altar and took her place beside him. The priest began to speak, his voice echoing through the vaulted space. She barely heard the words. She was too aware of the king standing beside her, too aware of the heat radiating from his body, so different from the cold she had expected. "Do you, Keldon, Alpha King of Valdros, take this woman to be your mate, your queen, your partner in all things?" "I do." His voice was steady, emotionless, exactly as she had expected. "And do you, Nerissa of House Morkant, take this man to be your mate, your king, your partner in all things?" "I do." The priest smiled. "Then by the authority vested in me, I declare you bound. You may seal the bond." In traditional ceremonies, this was where the alpha would mark his mate, bite her neck, claim her publicly, but Keldon had agreed to something different. He turned to face her, and Nerissa's heart stuttered as he reached for her hand instead. His fingers were warm as they intertwined with hers, strong and steady. I claim you, he said, his voice carrying through the cathedral. As my queen, as my partner, as mine. Nerissa swallowed hard. I claim you, as my king, as my partner, as mine. Something pulsed between them, a spark of connection that made her gasp. Deep in her chest, that dormant power shifted again, straining toward him like a flower toward sunlight. The crowd erupted in applause, but Nerissa barely heard it. She was staring at her husband, at the brief flash of surprise in his expression that suggested he had felt it too. What was that? She wondered. What is happening to me? Before she could think further, Kael'dan lifted her hand to his lips. The kiss was brief, formal. His mouth was warm against her knuckles, and when he raised his head, there was something in his expression she could not quite read. Well done, he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. The hardest part is over. But as they turned to face the cheering crowd, as they walked back down the aisle as king and queen, Nerissa could not shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. The feast that followed was overwhelming. Too many faces, too many names, too many nobles who looked at her with thinly veiled contempt. Nerissa sat beside the king at the high table, picking at food she could not taste. She watched him interact with his subjects, confident, controlled, utterly unreachable. Not once did he look at her with anything beyond polite acknowledgement. This is your life now, she reminded herself. This distance, this coldness. You agreed to it. She was reaching for her wine glass when a voice spoke from behind her. My dear daughter, how proud I am. Nerissa's blood turned to ice. Theron stepped around the table, bowing low before the king with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Your Majesty, I wanted to offer my congratulations personally. You have made an interesting choice for a queen. Kael'dan's expression did not change. Lord Morcant, I wondered when you would approach. A father must wish his daughter well on her wedding day. Theron's gaze slid to Nerissa, and she saw the hatred burning beneath his pleasant mask. Though I confess, I am surprised at how things have turned out. My daughter has always been disappointing. Has she? Kael'dan's voice was mild. I find her quite remarkable. Theron's smile faltered. Remarkable. Yes. Of course, Your Majesty. He leaned closer to Nerissa, his voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. Do not think this crown will protect you, girl. I know what you are hiding. And when the king discovers the truth about his new queen, his smile widened. Well, let us just say that even kings have been known to dispose of embarrassments. Before Nerissa could respond, Kael'dan's hand closed over hers. Lord Morcant. The king's voice was ice. You are dismissed. Theron paled. Your Majesty, I said you are dismissed. Remove yourself from my sight before I remove you from this castle entirely. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to watch as Theron backed away, his face twisted with humiliation and fury. He bowed stiffly and disappeared into the crowd. Nerissa stared at her husband. You did not have to do that. He was threatening you. Kael'dan's jaw was tight. In my hall, at my table, on my wedding day. His eyes met hers, and for just a moment she saw something fierce burning in their depths. No one threatens what is mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. Not fear, something else entirely. I thought you did not care for me, she said quietly. I do not. His expression shuttered closed. But you are my queen now. An insult to you is an insult to me. It is politics. Nothing more. He released her hand and turned away, already greeting the next noble in line. But Nerissa had seen it. Just for a moment, she had seen something crack in that icy facade, and she could not stop thinking about what might lie beneath. The queen's chambers were larger than the entire house Nerissa had grown up in. Silk curtains framed windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. A fire crackled in a hearth big enough to stand in. And the bed. Gods. The bed could have fit 10 people comfortably. Nerissa stood in the center of the room, her wedding gown suddenly feeling like a cage. The servants had left her alone to prepare. They had offered to help her undress, to bathe her, to ready her for what came next. She had refused them all. The thought of anyone seeing her back, seeing the brand that sealed her power, made her stomach churn with old familiar shame. So she stood alone, her pulse racing, waiting for her husband. Her husband, the Alpha King. A man who had promised her everything except the one thing that might have made this bearable. A knock at the door made her jump. "Enter," she called, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. The door opened and Keldon stepped inside. He had changed from his formal wedding attire. Gone were the silver embroidery and heavy fabrics. Now he wore simple black. A loose shirt unlaced at the throat, dark trousers. His feet were bare against the stone floor. He looked less like a king and more like a man. Somehow, that made everything more terrifying. "You are still dressed," he observed, closing the door behind him. Nerissa's throat went dry. "I was not certain of the protocol." Something flickered in his gaze. "Protocol? For this? For..." She gestured vaguely between them. I do not know what you expect." Understanding dawned on his features. "You have never been with a man." It was not a question, but she answered anyway. "No. Who would want a null blood?" The word hung between them like a blade. Keldon moved closer, not threatening, careful. Like approaching a wild animal he did not wish to startle. "We need to complete the bond," he said quietly. "For the prophecy. For the kingdom. But I will not force you. If you need time, no." Nerissa straightened her spine. "I agreed to this. I understand my duty." "Duty." He repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. "Is that truly how you see this?" "How else should I see it? You made the terms clear. This is a contract, an arrangement." She met his gaze steadily. "I am not foolish enough to pretend otherwise." For a long moment, he simply looked at her. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well, but I have conditions of my own for tonight." Nerissa tensed. "What conditions?" "First, we will extinguish the lights. Complete darkness." He paused. "You have something you wish to hide. I will not take that from you." Relief flooded through her so intensely she nearly swayed. "Thank you." "Second, you will tell me if anything causes you pain or discomfort, immediately, without hesitation." She nodded. "And third," his voice dropped lower, "you will not pretend. If you feel nothing, say so. If you wish to stop, say so. I have no interest in performing a lie." Nerissa stared at him. This cold, distant king who had sworn never to love her was offering her more consideration than anyone in her life ever had. "Why?" she whispered. "Why does my comfort matter to you?" Something shifted in his expression, something that almost looked like pain. "Because I know what it is to be used without care." His jaw tightened. "I will not inflict that on another." Before she could respond, he moved to the fireplace and extinguished the flames with a wave of his hand. Then the candles. One by one, darkness crept through the room until nothing remained but shadows. Nerissa's pulse quickened as she heard him approach. She could not see him now, could only sense his presence, feel the warmth radiating from his body as he drew near. "May I?" His voice came from directly in front of her. Close. So close. "Yes," she breathed. His hands found her shoulders, gentle, warm. She had expected coldness from him, but his touch was like summer sunlight. His fingers traced along the edges of her gown, finding the laces at her sides. "Turn around," he murmured. I will unlace you. I will not look. She turned, presenting her back to him. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she felt him working the laces loose. The fabric loosened around her torso, but he did not push it from her shoulders. Instead, his fingers traced up her spine, over the fabric still covering her. There is something here, he said quietly. Something you fear. Nerissa closed her eyes. Yes. Will you tell me what it is? Someday? Perhaps, when I am ready. His hand stilled. Then, unexpectedly, she felt his lips press against the back of her neck, just above where her gown still covered her sealed brand. The kiss was feather-light, almost reverent. When you are ready, he agreed, and not before. Something cracked open in her chest. Something that had been frozen for a very long time began, slowly, to thaw. He turned her back to face him, and in the darkness, his mouth found hers. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning. But when she responded, when her hands rose to grip his shoulders, something shifted. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, grew hungry, and Nerissa felt herself drowning in sensation. This was nothing like she had imagined. Nothing like the cold transaction she had braced herself for. This was fire. They moved together toward the bed, shedding clothes along the way. Nerissa kept her back turned whenever possible, and true to his word, Kaeldin never tried to look. In the darkness, they were equals, two bodies learning each other by touch alone. When they finally came together, there was pain. She had expected that. But he was patient, so patient, murmuring soft words against her hair, stilling whenever she tensed, and waiting for her to relax before moving again. And gradually, the pain faded. Something else took its place, a building pressure, a growing heat that spread through her body like wildfire. Deep in her chest, the caged flame responded violently, reaching toward him, straining against its chains. At the peak of their joining, Nerissa cried out, not in pain, in something else entirely, something that felt like breaking apart and being remade all at once. And in that moment, she heard it. A sound that did not come from Kaeldin's throat. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to rise from somewhere beneath his skin. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision despite the darkness. Then it was gone. Kaeldin went rigid above her, his breath ragged, his body trembling. What was that? Nerissa whispered. For a long moment, he did not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. Nothing? It was nothing. He pulled away from her. She heard rustling as he gathered his clothes. Kaeldin, wait. Sleep. His voice was tight, controlled. I will send servants to attend you in the morning. You are leaving? I must. She heard his footsteps moving toward the door. But before he opened it, he paused. Thank you, he said quietly, for tonight, for your trust. Then he was gone. Nerissa lay in the darkness, her body still humming with sensation, her mind racing with questions. What had she heard? What was he hiding? And why did part of her already ache for him to return? He did return. The following night, Nerissa was preparing for bed when a knock came at her door. The same 3 soft raps she had heard before. She opened it to find Kaeldin standing in the corridor, his expression unreadable. I came to inquire after your health, he said stiffly. My health is fine, Your Majesty. An awkward pause. Neither of them moved. May I come in? He asked finally. Nerissa stepped aside. Of course. He entered, and she closed the door behind him. For a moment he simply stood there, looking around the room as if searching for something to say. I should not have left so abruptly last night, he said. It was discourteous. You had your reasons. Nerissa studied him carefully. In the candlelight she could see shadows beneath his eyes, signs of a sleepless night. Are you well? You look tired. Something flickered across his features. Surprise, perhaps. I am fine. That is what I said. And you did not believe me either. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. You are too observant for your own good. And you are too secretive for yours. They stood facing each other, the air between them thick with unspoken words. The bond, Kilden said slowly. The prophecy requires it to be strengthened. Regular connection will ensure it takes root properly. Nerissa raised an eyebrow. Are you asking to bed me again, Your Majesty? Using prophecy as an excuse? He blinked. For a moment he looked genuinely flustered. That is not... Because if you want to be here, she continued, her heart pounding despite her calm voice, you could simply say so. The silence stretched between them. Then Kilden exhaled slowly. I want to be here, he admitted. The words seemed to cost him something, though I cannot explain why. Then stay. He stayed. And the night that followed was different from the first. Less hesitant, more honest. They learned each other in the darkness, hands mapping territory that had been unknown, voices murmuring questions and answers that would never be spoken in daylight. When it was over, Nerissa expected him to leave again. Instead, he lay beside her, his breathing gradually slowing. You may go, she whispered. I know you do not wish to. Be quiet. His arm curled around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. I am tired, and you are warm. She smiled into the darkness. Is that all I am? A source of heat? Among other things. Within moments, his breathing evened out. He had fallen asleep. Nerissa lay very still, hardly daring to move, scarcely able to believe what was happening. This cold, distant king who had sworn never to love her was holding her as if she were precious, as if she mattered. Do not hope, she warned herself. This is still a contract. He is still a stranger. But her heart refused to listen. The nights became a pattern. Kilden would come to her chambers after sunset. Sometimes they would talk first. Sometimes they would fall into each other without words. But always, he would stay until morning. Nerissa found herself looking forward to those nights with an intensity that frightened her. She began to notice things about him, the way he held tension in his shoulders, the small scar beneath his left ear, the sound he made, almost like a purr, when she ran her fingers through his hair. And other things, darker things. Some nights, she would wake to find him trembling beside her. Not from cold, from something else. His skin would be slicked with sweat, his jaw clenched, his eyes squeezed shut as if fighting an invisible battle. Once, she caught a glimpse of shadows moving beneath his skin, writhing, alive. What haunts you? She asked one night, tracing her fingers along his jaw. What are you fighting? Kilden's eyes opened. In the darkness, they seemed to glow with an inner light. You would not believe me if I told you. Try me. He was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to speak. There is something inside me, something that has been passed down through my bloodline for generations. His voice was barely a whisper. An entity, a beast born of shadows. My ancestors made a bargain with dark forces during the Great War. It gave them power beyond imagining, but there was a price. Nerissa's hand stilled against his chest. She could feel his heart beating, strong, steady, and beneath it, something else. A second pulse, darker, hungrier. What price? The beast feeds on emotion. The stronger we feel, the stronger it grows. His jaw tightened. If we allow ourselves to love, truly love, the beast consumes us entirely. We become monsters, shadows given flesh. The words hit her like a physical blow. That is why you cannot love me. That is why I cannot love anyone. His gaze met hers in the darkness. I chose you because I believed you were safe, a null blood with no wolf, someone I could never truly connect with, someone who could never reach the part of me where the beast sleeps. Nerissa's throat tightened, but something changed. Everything changed. His hand rose to cup her face. From the moment I touched you in that hall, I felt it. The beast recognized something in you, something it wants. And the more time I spend with you, the stronger that hunger grows. Then perhaps you should stop coming to me. I have tried. His voice broke. Gods help me, I have tried. But I cannot stay away from you. Nerissa, you are the first person in my entire life who has made me feel warm. She kissed him then, fierce and desperate and full of all the things neither of them could say. They made love that night with an urgency that left them both shaking. And when it was over, when he held her against his chest, Nerissa made a decision. She would find a way to save him, even if it destroyed her in the process. The weeks turned to months. Nerissa began researching in the palace library, searching for any information about the shadow curse. She found fragments, hints, references to prophecies she did not understand. Meanwhile, her bond with Kael'dan deepened. They talked now. Not just at night, but during the day. He sought her opinion on matters of state, asked her advice on trade negotiations and border disputes, listened when she spoke. For the first time in her life, Nerissa felt valued, seen. Not as a nullblood or a burden, but as a partner, an equal. And the presence inside her, the thing that had been caged for so long, grew stronger every day. Sometimes she could almost hear it, a voice at the edge of her consciousness, calling to her, waiting. Something is awakening in you, Kael'dan said one night, his hand pressed flat against her heart. I can feel it. The beast can feel it too. What is it? I do not know. His gaze searched her face. But I think it is the key, the reason the prophecy led me to you. What does the prophecy say exactly? Kael'dan hesitated. It says that when the caged fire meets the bound shadow, either both will be freed or both will be consumed. Nerissa's blood ran cold. Consumed? There is a chance. He stopped, swallowed. There is a chance that instead of breaking the curse, we will make it worse, that the beast will devour us both. Then why risk it? Why search for me at all? His hand slid from her heart to her stomach, rested there with infinite gentleness. Because my bloodline ends with me. I have no brothers, no cousins. If I die without an heir, the curse will not die with me. It will spread, infect others. The beast will find new hosts, and the entire kingdom will fall to shadow. Nerissa stared at him, understanding dawning. You need an heir to contain the curse. I need an heir born of the caged fire, a child who carries both your power and my blood. His eyes met hers, raw and honest, a child strong enough to break what I cannot. And if we are consumed instead, then at least we will have tried. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. At least we will have had these months with you. This warmth I never thought I would know. Nerissa held him in the darkness and said nothing, but inside, heat flickered in her core. Awakening, growing, ready to fight. 3 months into her pregnancy, Nerissa sat in the palace gardens, her hand pressed against her stomach. She was carrying his child. The healer had confirmed it weeks ago. A life was growing inside her, an heir to the throne of Valdros. The fulfillment of the prophecy. She should have been terrified, should have been thinking of curses and shadows and the possibility of consumption. Instead, she felt joy, pure, overwhelming, unexpected joy. A child, her child, something she had never dared to dream of. You look pleased with yourself. Nerissa looked up to find Lycia approaching, Her sister had been a frequent visitor to the palace over the past months, at first hostile, then curious. Now something approaching civil. I have news, Nerissa said carefully. Good news, I think. Lycia sat beside her on the stone bench. You are pregnant. Nerissa blinked. How did you know? You have been glowing for weeks, and you have not touched wine in a month. Lycia shrugged. I am observant. You disapprove? I am concerned. Lycia's expression was uncharacteristically serious. Father has been asking questions about you, about the king, about whatever prophecy you are supposedly fulfilling. Nerissa tensed. What kind of questions? The dangerous kind. Lycia met her eyes. Be careful, sister. Whatever you have become to the king, whatever power is awakening in you, Father sees it as a threat, and he does not react well to threats. Before Nerissa could respond, a servant appeared, bowing low. Your Majesty, the king requests your presence in his study. Nerissa rose, her blood suddenly rushing. Now? Immediately, Your Majesty. She exchanged a look with Lycia, then followed the servant into the palace. She found Kaelden standing by the window, staring out at the gardens. He turned when she entered, and Nerissa saw immediately that something was different. He was pale, paler than usual, and the shadows beneath his eyes had deepened into bruises. You know, he said quietly. Not a question. I know. Nerissa moved toward him. The healer confirmed it this morning. Are you well? Is the child? We are both fine. She took his hands, alarmed by how cold they felt. Kaelden, what is wrong? You look... The beast is stronger. His voice was strained. Since I found out about the child, it has been restless, hungry. It can sense what is growing inside you. Fear curled in Nerissa's stomach. What does that mean? I do not know. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. I do not know anything anymore. I only know that I cannot lose you, either of you. She clung to him, feeling his heart pound against her chest, feeling the second pulse beneath it, darker, faster. We will find a way, she whispered. We will break this curse. How can you be so certain? Because I refuse to accept any other outcome. She pulled back to look at him. You found me, Kaelden. After 3 years of searching, against all odds, we were meant to be here, together. I have to believe that means something. His eyes searched her face, and in them, she saw something she had never seen before. Hope. Time passed. The pregnancy progressed. Nerissa grew larger, and the presence inside her grew stronger. She could feel it now, awake and aware. Not a wolf. Something else entirely. Something ancient and fierce and full of fire. The night the child came, Nerissa screamed herself hoarse. The labor was brutal, agonizing, lasting hours that felt like days. But through it all, Kaelden stayed by her side, holding her hand, his face white with fear. And finally, a cry filled the room. A daughter, the midwife announced, holding up a squalling infant with dark hair and silver-touched eyes. A healthy, perfect daughter. Nerissa wept as she took the baby in her arms. So small, so perfect, so impossible. She is beautiful, Kaelden breathed, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out, his finger tracing the baby's cheek with infinite gentleness. What shall we name her? Serenia, Nerissa said. The name came to her without thinking. It means little fire. Serenia. Kaelden smiled, and it transformed his entire face, made him look young and open and full of wonder. It is perfect. She is perfect. But even as he spoke, Nerissa saw his hand trembling, saw the shadows moving beneath his skin. Kaelden, she whispered, what is happening to you? His smile faded. Nothing. I am fine. Do not lie to me. Not now. Not after everything. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with pain. "The beast," he said quietly. "It is growing stronger. Feeding on what? On this." His hand gestured between them, at the baby, at her, at everything they had built together. "On how much I feel. How much I—" He stopped, shook his head. "It does not matter. It matters to me." Nerissa caught his hand, pressed it against her heart. "Tell me what you are feeling, please." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "I love you." The words hung in the air like a held breath. "I have tried not to. Gods know I have tried. But you are everything, Nerissa. You and this child. My entire world." His eyes met hers, bright with unshed tears. "I love you. I love our daughter. And I am terrified that loving you will destroy us all." Nerissa stared at him, her heart overflowing with everything she had been holding back for months. "I love you too," she breathed. "I have loved you for so long." She never finished the sentence. Kael'dan's hand flew to his chest. His eyes went wide. A sound tore from his throat, half scream, half growl, inhuman and terrible. The shadows beneath his skin exploded outward. Dark tendrils erupted from his body, writhing like living things. His eyes flickered, turning black, then silver again, then black. His whole body convulsed. "Kael'dan!" Nerissa screamed. But he could not hear her. He had collapsed to his knees, clawing at his own chest as if trying to tear something out from inside. "The beast!" he gasped. It is breaking free. Run! Take Serenia and run!" Nerissa clutched her daughter to her chest, frozen with terror. And then, with one final agonizing cry, Kael'dan's eyes went completely black. The shadows swallowed him whole. The shadows had taken him. Nerissa stood frozen, clutching Serenia to her chest as the darkness that had consumed Kael'dan began to take shape. It rose from where he had fallen, a towering mass of writhing shadows with eyes like burning embers. The beast. "Run!" The voice that emerged was Kael'dan's, but distorted. Broken, as if he were screaming from the bottom of a well. "Nerissa, take our daughter and run." But she could not move, could not breathe, could not do anything but stare at the nightmare before her. Guards burst through the door, swords drawn. The beast turned toward them, and with one sweep of a shadowy limb, sent them crashing against the walls. "Kael'dan," Nerissa whispered, "fight it, please. Come back to me." The ember eyes fixed on her. For just a moment they flickered silver. "I cannot." His voice was fading, drowning beneath something darker. "The love. It fed too long. I am lost." "No." Nerissa stepped forward, ignoring every instinct screaming at her to flee. "You are not lost. You are mine. My husband, my king, my mate." The beast roared. The sound shook the walls, cracked the windows, and sent servants screaming through the corridors. But Nerissa did not flinch. "You found me," she said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her heart. 3 years you searched, against all odds, and you found me." She took another step closer. "Now let me find you." The shadows writhed, the ember eyes flickered again, and then, from deep within the darkness, a voice emerged. Not Kael'dan's. Something older, something hungry. "He is ours now," the beast hissed. "He gave himself to us the moment he admitted love. There is no saving him. There is only feeding." "Then feed on me instead." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. The beast went still. "What? You want emotion? You want something to devour?" Nerissa's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear herself speak. "Then take me. Take whatever power is inside me, but let him go." The beast laughed. The sound was terrible, like breaking bones and dying screams. "You think yourself worthy? A null blood? An empty shell? I am not empty." Nerissa's voice rose. I have never been empty. There is something inside me. Something that has been caged since I was a child. Something you want. The ember eyes narrowed. How do you know this? Because Kael'dan told me. Because the prophecy speaks of caged fire meeting bound shadow. She lifted her chin. I am the caged fire, and I am offering myself to you. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the shadows began to shift, to part, revealing a shape at their center. Kael'dan. He was suspended in the darkness, his body limp, his skin gray, his eyes closed. But he was still there, still breathing. If you truly wish to save him, the beast purred, then show us what you are. Break your cage. Let your fire free. I do not know how. Then he dies. The shadows began to close around Kael'dan once more. And we will take your daughter next. No. The scream tore from Nerissa's throat with a force that surprised her. And with it came something else. A heat that started in her chest and spread outward, burning through her veins like liquid fire. The caged presence inside her, the one that had been stirring for months, suddenly roared to life. Pain exploded through her body. Nerissa collapsed to her knees, still clutching Serenia, as fire erupted from her skin. Real fire. Golden flames that danced along her arms, her shoulders, her back. The brand on her back began to burn, not with pain, with recognition. The seal was cracking. What is this? The beast recoiled. What are you? Nerissa looked up, and she knew her eyes were no longer gray. They were burning gold. I am the caged fire, she said, and I am done being caged. But even as the flames grew stronger, even as the beast shrieked in fury, Nerissa felt herself weakening. The fire was consuming her, burning through her body faster than she could control. She was dying. No, she whispered, looking down at Serenia. The baby was unharmed, protected by some instinct Nerissa did not understand, but she would not be protected for long. No, I need more time. I need to save him. I need to save her. The world began to fade. The flames flickered. And as darkness crept into the edges of her vision, Nerissa heard the beast laughing. Caged fire indeed, it mocked. Caged and extinguished. You cannot save anyone. You do not even know what you are. Then everything went black. Nerissa woke to the sound of weeping. She was lying on something soft. A bed. The familiar bed in her chambers. For a moment she thought it had all been a nightmare. The beast. The shadows. The fire. Then she heard the voice. She is dying, my lady. The strain of whatever she did. Her body cannot sustain it. There must be something. Lycia's voice, broken with desperation. Some healer, some witch, someone who can help her. The only one who might know is... But he would never help. Not after what he did to her. Who? Her father. Lord Theron Morcant. Nerissa forced her eyes open. The light was blinding. Everything hurt. But she was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive. Kael'dan, she croaked. Where is... The king? Lycia appeared above her, eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Sister. Thank the gods. You have been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days? Nerissa struggled to sit up. Pain lanced through her body. Kael'dan, the beast. Is he... The shadow creature retreated when you collapsed. Lycia helped her upright. It did not leave entirely. The king is... contained. The court mages have erected barriers around his chambers, but they cannot hold forever. And Serenia? Safe. The nursemaids have been caring for her day and night. She is unharmed. Lycia hesitated. Sister, what happened to you? The fire. I have never seen anything like it. Nerissa looked down at her hands. They looked normal now, but she could still feel it. The fire, banked but not extinguished, waiting in her blood. I do not fully understand it myself. She met Lycia's eyes. But I think father does. Lycia's expression hardened. Then we go to him. We? You can barely stand. And father? Lycia's jaw tightened. I have questions of my own that need answering. The ride to Morkan's estate took most of the day. Nerissa spent it drifting in and out of consciousness, her body still weak from whatever she had done. But her mind was sharp, racing, piecing together fragments she had never understood before. Why her father hated her so completely. Why he had branded her a nullblood when she clearly was not. Why he had been so furious when the Alpha King chose her. He knew. He had always known. They arrived at the estate as the sun was setting. Guards tried to stop them at the gate, but one look at Lycia's face sent them scattering. They found Theron in his study, a glass of wine in his hand, staring into the fire. I wondered when you would come, he said without turning. The whole kingdom is buzzing with news of the shadow beast and whispers of a queen who burst into flames. You know what I am. Nerissa's voice was steady despite her weakness. You have always known. Theron turned. His face was older than she remembered, lined with age and bitterness. Of course I knew. He took a long drink of wine. I knew from the moment you were born. The flames that erupted in the birthing chamber. The midwife who died trying to contain them. Nerissa's blood went cold. What? You killed her. Theron's eyes were empty of remorse. Your first victim. A woman who had delivered 100 babies, incinerated by an infant who could not control her power. That is not... I did not... You did. And you would have killed more if I had not acted. He set down his glass. I sought out a powerful witch, paid her a fortune to create a binding seal, the brand on your back. Something that would cage your fire permanently. And it worked. For 20 years, it worked. Until the Alpha King chose her, Lycia said quietly. Until her power began to awaken. Theron nodded. The prophecy. I had heard whispers of it years ago, a shadow-cursed king searching for his caged fire. I thought if I bound her power completely, if I marked her as a nullblood, no one would ever look twice at her. He laughed bitterly. I was wrong. Nerissa's hands were shaking. You let me believe I was worthless. You branded me. You let everyone treat me like nothing. Better nothing than a monster. I am not a monster. Are you certain? Theron stepped closer, his eyes cold. You just released power that nearly killed you. The shadow beast retreated because it feared what you might become. And when you lose control again, and you will, how many people will burn? That is not... Your mother knew. The words stopped Nerissa cold. Helena knew what you were. She wanted to nurture your power, train you to control it. Theron's lip curled. I could not allow that. Lycia's face went white. Father, what did you do? What I had to do. His voice was flat. She would have undone everything, would have set the monster free. So I removed the threat. The fire in Nerissa's blood surged. You killed her. I protected this family. You murdered our mother. Lycia's scream echoed through the study. For what? To hide your own shame? To pretend you had not sired a fire wielder? To survive, Theron roared. Do you have any idea what they do to families who produce unbound elementals? The investigations? The purges? I would have lost everything. So you killed your wife. Nerissa's voice was ice. Branded your daughter. Let her believe she was nothing for 20 years, all to protect your reputation. To protect this family. There is no family left to protect. Lycia stepped forward, her face contorted with fury. You are a murderer, a liar, and I will see you rot in a cell for what you have done. Theron laughed. You think anyone will believe you? The word of a fire witch and her desperate sister against a respected lord? They will believe the seal. Everyone turned. A new voice had spoken from the doorway. An old woman stood there leaning on a gnarled cane. Her eyes were sharp and knowing, and power radiated from her like heat from a forge. "Who are you?" Lycia demanded. The woman smiled. "I am Veradis, your grandmother's twin sister, and I have been waiting a very long time for this moment." Veradis moved into the room, her cane tapping against the floor with each step. "The seal your father commissioned was my creation," she said, her eyes fixed on Nerissa. "He came to me in desperation, begging me to bind your power. I refused at first. Fire elementals are rare, precious. To cage such a gift seemed a crime." "Then why did you do it?" Nerissa asked. "Because I saw what would happen if I did not." Veradis's voice softened. "I am a seer as well as a witch. I saw visions of you, uncontrolled, burning everything you loved. So I created the seal. But I also created a way to break it." She reached into her robes and withdrew a small object, a crystal sphere, glowing with inner fire. "This contains the key to your binding. I have carried it for 20 years, waiting for the right moment." She placed it in Nerissa's hands. "The prophecy spoke of caged fire meeting bound shadow. I believe you have met your shadow, and now it is time for the fire to be freed." Nerissa stared at the sphere. Warmth pulsed against her palms. Recognition. "If I break the seal," she said slowly, "I can save Kael'dan?" "Perhaps. Your fire and his shadow were always meant to balance each other. That is why the prophecy brought you together." Veradis paused. "But there is a risk. If you cannot control the fire, if it consumes you." "I know." Nerissa clutched the sphere tightly. "I am willing to take that risk." "Wait." Lycia caught her arm. "Sister, you nearly died 3 days ago. If this goes wrong, if I do nothing, Kael'dan dies. The beast breaks free. Our daughter grows up without parents in a kingdom consumed by shadows." Nerissa met her sister's eyes. "I have to try." Lycia stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Then I am coming with you." Behind them, forgotten by everyone, Theron watched his daughters leave with fury burning in his chest. But his fury turned to fear when 2 royal guards stepped into the study, chains in their hands. "O Lord Theron Morcant." The captain's voice was cold. "By order of Queen Nerissa, you are under arrest for the murder of Lady Helena Morcant and conspiracy against the crown." Theron opened his mouth to protest. The chains silenced him. The palace was in chaos when Nerissa arrived. Servants ran through corridors, their faces white with terror. Guards stood at every intersection, weapons drawn, eyes fixed on the darkness spreading from the king's chambers. The barriers were failing. "How long?" Nerissa demanded of the court mage who met them at the entrance. "Hours at most, your majesty." His voice trembled. "The beast grows stronger with each passing moment. We cannot contain it much longer." "Then lower the barriers." "Your majesty, if we do that—" "I know what I am asking." Nerissa's voice was calm, steady. "Lower them. Let me through." The mage hesitated, then nodded. With a gesture, the magical barriers flickered and faded. The darkness beyond them roiled with hunger. "Sister." Lycia caught her hand. "Are you certain?" "No." Nerissa looked at her, at this woman who had hated her for years, who was now standing beside her with tears in her eyes. "But certainty is a luxury I cannot afford." She stepped forward into the darkness. The shadows swallowed her immediately. For a moment, there was nothing. No light. No sound. No sensation except the cold pressing against her from all sides. Then the beast spoke. "You returned." Its voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "Foolish fire. You cannot defeat us. You cannot even control yourself. I do not need to defeat you." Nerissa walked forward into the darkness, following a warmth she could feel in her chest. The bond. Still there. Still connecting her to Kael'dan. I only need to reach him. He is ours now, body and soul. He was mine first. She found him at the center of the darkness, suspended in shadows just as he had been before, but weaker now, fading. The silver of his eyes barely visible through closed lids. Kael'dan. Nerissa reached for him. I am here. I found you. The shadows lashed at her, trying to drive her back, but she held her ground, the crystal sphere burning in her hand. You think that bauble can save him? The beast laughed. It is nothing but a key, and you are nothing but kindling. Then let me burn. Nerissa shattered the sphere. Fire exploded through her body, not the weak flames she had summoned before. This was an inferno. A supernova of golden light that tore through the darkness like a blade through silk. The beast screamed. The shadows writhed, retreating from the light. But the fire did not stop. It kept growing, kept burning and consuming everything in its path, including her. Nerissa felt herself dissolving, becoming light, becoming flame. The same thing that had nearly killed her before was happening again, only stronger this time, more final. No. Kael'dan's voice cut through the chaos. She felt his hands on her shoulders, his body pressed against hers, his presence anchoring her to reality. Nerissa, you have to control it. If you let it consume you. I do not know how. Yes, you do. His eyes met hers through the flames. You have been caged your entire life, told that you were nothing, but you were never nothing. You were always fire, strong and beautiful and impossible to contain. His hands cupped her face. Do not let the fire control you. You control it. The flames roared higher. The pain was blinding. But his voice cut through it all. I love you, Nerissa. I love your fire. I love everything you are. And I am not letting you go. Not now. Not ever. Something shifted inside her. The fire, wild and ravenous, began to calm. To settle. To recognize her not as fuel, but as master. Nerissa breathed. And when she opened her eyes, she saw that the darkness was gone. They stood in the ruined chamber, surrounded by scorch marks and shattered stone. The beast had vanished. The shadows had retreated. And Kael'dan was holding her, his eyes clear and bright and free of darkness. You did it, he breathed. You broke the curse. Nerissa looked down at her hands. Golden light still flickered along her skin, but it was gentle now, controlled. A part of her, rather than her master. We broke it, she corrected. Together. He pulled her close and kissed her. Not with cold distance or careful restraint, with fire and passion and all the love he had been forced to cage for so long. When they finally parted, both breathless, Nerissa laughed. Your hands are warm. Kael'dan blinked, then looked down at his own palms. For the first time in his life, heat radiated from his skin instead of cold. The shadow, he whispered. It is gone, truly gone. And it will never return. Veratus stepped into the chamber, Lycia beside her. The old witch was smiling. The prophecy is fulfilled. Caged fire met bound shadow, and both were freed. The curse is broken for you and for all who come after. Nerissa thought of Serenia, of their daughter who would never have to fear a beast in her blood or chains on her soul. It is over, she said. No. Kael'dan took her hand, pressing it against his heart. It is just beginning. 6 months later, Queen Nerissa stood on the balcony of the Palace of Valdros, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Below, the city celebrated. Torches flickered in every window. Music drifted up from the streets. The Festival of Flames, they were calling it. A new holiday marking the day the shadow curse was broken. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. You are missing the feast, Kael'dan murmured against her hair. I needed a moment. She leaned back against him. It still feels unreal sometimes. All of it. Which part? The curse? The fire? The part where my terrifying queen burned away centuries of darkness with nothing but willpower and love? She laughed. All of it. He turned her in his arms, his gaze soft with an emotion he no longer had to hide. Let me remind you what is real. He kissed her forehead. You are my wife. Her nose. My queen. Her lips. My everything. Mama. They turned to see Lycia approaching, Serenia squirming in her arms. The baby reached toward Nerissa with chubby hands, her silver-touched eyes bright with joy. Someone wanted her mother, Lycia said, handing her over. Nerissa cradled her daughter close, breathing in the sweet scent of her. Serenia giggled and grabbed a fistful of her hair. She has your fire, Kael'dan observed. I saw sparks in her crib this morning. And your stubbornness, Nerissa countered. She refused to nap for 3 hours. A future queen indeed. They stood together, the three of them, as the last light faded and the stars emerged. Below, the celebration continued. In the dungeons, Theron awaited trial for his crimes. In the academy Veratis had founded, young fire-wielders were learning to control their gifts. And across the kingdom, wolves who had been told they were worthless were discovering that they had value after all. I found you, Kael'dan said quietly, echoing the words he had spoken in that crowded auction hall so long ago. Nerissa smiled against his shoulder. And I found you. Neither of them had been searching for love. Both of them had been certain they would never deserve it. But love had found them anyway, and in finding each other, they had set an entire kingdom free. Thank you for listening to this story. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I always read them, and they mean more than you know.